This noisy little robot is called Terence. Terence is a modular robot, meaning it can be configured for a variety of tasks. In this video, I'll be demonstrating one of its possibilities as a personal translator, a robot that follows you around and can assist in communication barriers. Terence here is able to do this through relatively simple software at the moment. It uses a speech-to-text program. In this case, we're using something called Voice, which basically turns audio into usable text that the translation service can then use to translate the text. And then it goes to what's called a TTS, or text-to-speech. I should note that this is only generation 1. It's only a proof of concept. It's not fully functional. There will be a lot of life support for this robot in this video. So, in generation 2, above, the plan is to, 1, improve the overall construction, but also the software. The software is the biggest limitation of this particular unit. It has some issues with translations, as we'll explore later on in this video. But again, as proof of concept, we'll be exploring how a robot like this could improve communication barriers, not necessarily solve them with this robot, but other robots like it. So I hope you enjoy this video and find something interesting about it. Okay, so why use a robot? What's the problem? Well, as I stated before, the problem is communication barriers. This could be solved with other things, such as simple translation apps, but translation apps can fall short on some aspects. It's not as personal. Not saying this would be necessarily as personal, but a physical robot brings a physical presence, and an enhanced version of this software would come with things like a chat AI, which can contextualize and make better translations, like having your own personal translator. Now, imagine there's a situation where you're in a business meeting or you're in a foreign land where you don't speak the language. You want things to go as smooth as possible. A robot, like Terence here, could solve this. With using a localized set of software, meaning it does not connect to the internet, it can work anywhere, where some apps may fall short. Then the problem is the sophistication of translation. This is where a chatbot would be used. I'm sure many of you have heard of ChatGPT. They're not the only ones making chat models. There's loads. Those ones are normally typically quite big, but there are smaller ones that can run locally on simple robots like Terence here, which can make for very powerful conversations, breaking down these barriers and making communication much smoother and much more reliable. Okay, let's do some examples. Before we do that, a little overview of Terence's head, the business end as it were. We've got 3 microphones. These 2 are purely for directional hearing. This bigger one in the middle is for the voice detection. In the back we've got a speaker, and in the front here we've got a camera. Let's think of an example. Terence, translate good morning into Japanese.
Yes.
I will put an overlay of what's going on in his head so we can see the input text and the output text. This showcases the limitation of the current software. E-usa is far from correct. I mean, it is technically correct. It does mean good morning, E being good, usa being morning. But a better response would be Ohayo or Ohayo gozaimasu. Let's try one other translation example. Terence, how much? Oh, no, sorry. Terence, can you translate the following? How much does this cost in Japanese?
このコストがどれくらいかかるか。
Thank you. Again, it does work, but it'd make more sense to say ikura desu ka, ikura being how much, and ka being question. My Japanese is rusty, I couldn't tell you if that's 100% correct, but Terence is missing certain nuances. Let's talk about the limitations of this machine. I've stated throughout this video that it's far from perfect and it has a lot of limitations. While physically the robot can move around and look and observe, software is holding it back. At the moment it's only using simple services like the ones I mentioned before. The voice to text and the text to speech work fine. However, the translation part is not as good as it could be. We saw in those previous examples of it making technically correct translations, but not perfect translations. This makes it fall a little bit short of translation apps, which we want to break. We want to make better translations. This is the issue of directly translating text. We had the example good morning translating to iasa, which literally means good and morning, but that's not a really common thing to say. You'd say Ohio or Ohio gozaimasu. So the main solution here, as I've said another few times, is to use some sort of chat AI, language models. They have a better understanding, if you could call it that. We're not going to go into the nuances of language models, but they are far more sophisticated than translation services. This would open up a lot more communication, smoother communication, and even conversations. The robot would be able to bridge gaps and ask simple questions to what you're saying. It will make for a smoother one-to-one, basically. So in the future, this would be a great thing to install, is a language model. I have experimented with some local ones. Again, the issue is the bigger they are, the beefier of a computer they need, but it's not impossible. And fortunately, robots being a bit bigger than smartphones, you can fit a lot more hardware in one of these, which means you can run more sophisticated AI. I felt it was important to move away from the translation aspect of this video, even though that's what the video is about, just to mention why a modular robot's being used. I've noticed recently there's been a lot of robots, I'm sure a few of you have seen them, on the market, a lot of humanoid robots. Problem is, they're very closed. There's not much room for upgradability, repairs, configurations. I hope that Terence here can change that by being as modular as possible. You need him to do a certain task, you can just buy the modules and install them. It's the same for the software. The software is fairly modular. Before, it wasn't even intended as a translation robot. It's simply an archival robot that follows users around and records the surroundings. Because of how versatile the software is, I was able to just make a Python service, type of programming environment, for the translation scripts, and then add them to the program hub, which allows him to now translate. Hopefully, this will be a more adopted view for robots, kind of like the early computers, and I'm quite thankful that computers now are fairly modular. You can take them apart, change them, and diversify them. So hopefully this catches on with robots. Well, I hope this has done a good job at demonstrating what robots could be used for. Instead of repetitive manual labour in a factory, robots can be used in an interactive setting with humans. Translation services are only a fraction of what this kind of robot could do. This robot could be used in schools to help with education, in healthcare sectors to help with patients, in commerce, in stores, or just for personal use. You just want a robot, you can have a robot. You want that robot to help you translate stuff? Well, be it. It can help you do that. I would love to see, in my lifetime, more robots that are accessible to the public and useful. We've got lots of useless robots. But a robot like Terence here, who could do something as simple as translation, is immediately more useful than a lot of his counterparts. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can take something back from it. And let's hope the future of robotics is a bright one. Thank you.